All right. So we are now at the home run stage to bring an amazing panel on and talk about cracking the code on AI, right? Um, I'd love to bring Monica up, Monica Rincon, from the Consumer Internet Banking, JP Morgan. Hello, hello. Let's also bring up Chris Brown from the our Inception Program Partner Manager at NVIDIA. Nicholas DiNatale, founder at ShipPlug. Sarah Nagy, co-founder and CEO at SeekAI, for a panel on cracking the code on AI. So each of you have microphones here. And Monica, I'm going to give this to you.
Amazing. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to do something real quick. I'm going to have everybody stand up, and I want to see your best power stance. Okay. We want some blood flow going. You guys have been bearing with us. Thank you, Chris. And so we're excited for tonight. You can take a seat again. Thank you for bearing with all of us. And so I'm excited tonight for a few reasons. One, what is happening, right? We saw the hackathons. We saw A.Team actually having a big night for them, something that has been in the works for a while. And that's actually sits very closely with what I do at JP Morgan, but something that is also personally very important for me. And so we want to build the A.Team Clubhouse, and we want to build JP Morgan as a space where founders can come together and build the rocket ship, right? And so that's what we're excited you're here tonight. I actually came from a family of founders. So the other side of these conversations are very close to me in some of the things that are happening tonight. So as I'll be introducing you to the panelists tonight, to our speakers, I am super excited. So I'm going to give a little shout out to each of you and then have you go to just do the proper LinkedIn background of what you're doing. But I've known Sarah for a few years now. I knew Sarah when she closed her seed round, and it's been amazing to see her journey. So she is listed in the Business Insider top 100 AI leaders, one of the few, if not the only female founder in the list. She's solving for data at the intersection of AI. And she will always keep it humble, but she's been building a machine at SeekAI. And so she's joining us today. So if data is one of the things that you're focused on, feel free to ask her all the hard questions. She can match you there. We have Nick. So Nick is actually in the e-commerce space. So Nick has been dealing with return shipping back and forth, cracking the code for over close to 10 years with FedEx in the industry. And then he decided to, you know what, I'm going to go and solve it myself. And so he's building with Paula and some of a team that is here, ShipPlug, which is a machine also solving for what consumer brands are trying to figure out in the current environment. So thank you for joining us, Nick. Last but not least, we have Chris. So we won't say Chris is like the OG in the room, but he is close to that. So he leads the Inception program at NVIDIA, which NVIDIA is kind of like the small company you might have heard of, kind of like a big deal right now. Yeah, it's that's your hot take question, Chris. Don't get him started yet. And so, but Chris is amazing. Chris has led accelerators in Europe, in the US. He's invested in founders. And so when we asked him to join tonight, he gladly said yes. And I think it's this. He's investing in founders. He's investing in those who are innovating and creative things. And so we've orchestrated this panel to really be beneficial for you. So please ask them questions. Please push their buttons and their hot takes, because we want you to walk away with things that are helpful for what you're building tonight. And so that's what we'll go through tonight. Thank you for bearing with us. So I'm going to go through you guys really quickly. Tell us, where do you sit in the Gen AI ecosystem? What are you solving for? And then we'll go from there. Sarah, you can go first.
Great. Yeah. Thanks so much for the really nice introduction, Monica. And thanks to A.Team for having me. So SeekAI, I actually founded in 2021 to solve my own pain point. I used to be a data scientist, Not doing something too dissimilar actually from the VC startup from the pitches. Um, but yeah, actually that's what I really wanted to be doing. Actually, was finding alpha like that, or at least like building the AI that could automate that kind of work. Building algorithms, right? Like I was a quantitative analyst at places like Citadel, um, and I just couldn't get to that kind of work actually most of the day. Like I was helping, non-technical people with very basic questions and just requests like most of the day. And eventually it just got, to be so unwieldy and, dissatisfying and also just feeling so inefficient that I was following large language models and got to a point where I was like, okay, there's going to be a day where AI can just do this work. And so that's really what motivated me to start Seek.
That's awesome. Nick, first, we'll go.
Audio is coming through a little quiet on the street. A little higher.
Okay, thanks.
Shout it out, Nick.
All right. So my name is Nick. I'm the founder of ShipPlug. And we started the company because we found that shippers of all sizes, from e-commerce, diagnostic lab, any type of person that needs to move product, has issues with their customer service. So their post-delivery experience. And what we tried to do and what we have done is we've built a data analytic model where it helps with the delivery experience. So not only how to help prevent chargebacks, but how to make that customer experience so special where you can charge more for a margin, where now in the e-commerce industry, everybody's a race to the bottom. So we built a business where we can help you impact your margin through savings and then also that delivery experience.
Sure. Thankfully at this point, most people do know what NVIDIA does. When I first joined about 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago exactly, providing people with an understanding of like how NVIDIA thinks about AI and what we actually do, right? Because most people, when I say NVIDIA, they say GPUs. And what we really do is we build tools that address different use cases around AI, whether that's computer vision, whether that's recommender frameworks, whether that's tools in healthcare. We even have some crazy stuff around quantum physics simulation, right? All these are things that we build with the philosophy that we want to give away those tools to the startups to help them build faster, better, higher, right? So that's really kind of how we think about things from my perspective. I got involved in NVIDIA because years ago I ran something called the Data Future Lab, which is a program focused on AI and ML coming out of NYU. Really amazing community. That's where a lot of like amazing like AI founders where I first started encountering them, and then as I had friends who were over at NVIDIA being like, yeah, we need somebody to help us build a startup community, and I was like, that sounds kind of amazing. So it was all very serendipitous as the pathway, those circuitous ended up leading there.
Yeah, that's amazing. So we're all hearing the hype around Gen AI, right? What is the opportunity? How do you think through it, right? So you've all done amazing things with consumer angles to this, right, Sarah? So you work with Spotify, helping them build deep cuts, right? So how do you leverage the wealth of data that Spotify has to best provide analytics and insights to their consumers? And you can say much better. And then Nick, you're helping consumer brands right now, figuring out their shipping experience, right? What is that purchasing experience from cart to storefront down to the box that they get at their house? How does that whole story come together in a time that, to say challenging for consumer brands is the least, right? Whether he's trying to approach a welcoming VC market, whether he's thinking about growth and profitability, right? So you're harnessing Gen AI to help the consumer brands navigate the current times and in a lot of cases survive, right? And then Nick, Chris, this is great. Chris, you see a ton of pure play, next generation Gen AI brands or companies come to you in NVIDIA and want to harness the power of NVIDIA's solutions. And so, what are the most exciting use cases you guys have seen? And really, where do you see the key learning? So, we have a lot of builders in the room tonight. What are some of the key lessons you guys have seen along the way that can help people advance forward?
I mean, I can definitely start with talking about deep cuts. You mentioned we were actually pretty early on to launch something like that. This was like early 2023. Deep Cuts was kind of this, almost like a toy sort of app that we launched that would let anyone connect their Spotify account and ask questions about their music. Like at the time I had, I guess my top genre was Float House, and I was like, what is Float House? And I could ask like Deep Cuts, like, what are my Float House artists? Like, why do I listen to Float House? And it would be like, oh, these are your top 5 artists. So that was kind of a really early application that, I would say that offering now is known as Powered by Seek. We work with a lot of companies now, especially companies where data is a pretty critical part of the value of their business. Where Seek just like sits on top of their data, and their customers or their users can ask questions to just engage much more deeply with their data.
So we use it for a few reasons. The typical ones, marketing, right? We use it to make videos. We use it for ChatGPT to make content. But one of the things we do is we're specializing in found money. So we actually handle it for more of an offensive customer service. So an example, UPS, FedEx, DHL, they all offer guarantees on their packages, and they also offer claims. So we'll integrate with our customers' technology or their back end, their customer service, when they get a complaint that there's an order missing or where's my package, they can integrate with us. We'll connect with FedEx, UPS, his API. We'll determine where it's at, but then we'll take it one step further. We'll actually go in using a chat bot, and we'll talk to FedEx's customer service. We'll talk to UPS's customer service, and we'll help determine when that package is going to be delivered. And then if it's not on time, we'll actually dispute the charge on behalf of the shipper to recoup money. And then if it's damaged, we can read emails, or we'll take an API feed, and we'll actually get money back for the damaged package. Everybody's had a box show up at your house that looked like it got stepped on, looks like it was thrown, which it might have been, but we'll dispute that package. And then what that helps prevent is the brand from getting chargebacks, because you can now implement a chargeback option where you're giving refunds back quicker than you would have been in the past. And it's all based on the premise that you're going to get a refund back or recoup money from the carrier. And we tie that all into a dashboard and give your customer a live update on how the dispute's going with the carrier.
Yeah. No, you got it. Chris, that was your last martini. And so the question was, so all the use cases that you've seen around Gen AI in consumer, what are the ones that you see most promising? And what lessons learned have you seen from founders as you've helped them build there?
So we obviously see things across the entire spectrum. Most of what we see on the consumer side ends up, being focused on media, entertainment, things of that nature. I think the one sort of consistent throughout all of that is that those founders that are building things that allow people to sort of, and I know this might sound weird, but allow people to disconnect a little bit more from technology are the ones that I personally find most compelling. And I think we're also seeing more and more of a push towards how do I instead of in this, the panel, this sort of came up as I asked a question of one of the startups. They're like, how do I avoid taking care of my computer, right? Just becoming a manager for a computer system. And any consumer app that allows us to do that, that's something that I think both I value immensely, but also, we're seeing real sort of interest in. Some of those are things where it takes away sort of a need for direct interaction, right? Some of the things where it's like, what if my AI has the ability to talk to, some company and does that work for me? Those things are brilliant. I think on the creativity side, there's a lot of amazing stuff coming out that is going to amplify the power of it's already amplifying the power of individuals, not just artists, to become more creative and to enhance their existing creativity. That's how I look at some of the sort of generative tooling on the artistic side, and I think that has the potential to open up a lot of opportunities for individual consumers to do things that they've never been able to do before because they don't have certain types of artistic talent or something like that. And I think all of those tools are kind of perfect.
That's super helpful. So Sarah, Nick, what did the journey look like building what you have today? So lessons that you've learned, best practices, places where you got burned, where if you could give that advice to someone else, you'll be like, I wish I would have heard it. So what did that journey look like?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned I started Seek back in 2021, late 2021. And so, yeah, I mean, the first 6 months, it was actually just me. Like I was, building the app myself, just alone in my, apartment on the Upper West Side. And I think if I could have done it all over again, I wouldn't have done that. Like I'm not a web developer. I thought I was like being so macho, so to speak, like learning how to code and React and like Angular and stuff, and it turned out to be a total waste of time. Like I probably could have gotten a lot further with a pitch deck, and like what I was strong at was building the actual underlying algorithms that powered the app, and I think I would have gotten a lot further just sticking with my strength, just with the core of the app, which was the algorithm, and just finding someone who was strong in the things that I wasn't strong at. I think that's something I kind of learned the hard way because at the end of the day we ended up rebuilding all the code that I wrote because it just wasn't professionally written code. And
Feels like you're doing a plug for A.Team, but
there you go. Yeah, I wish I knew about A.Team.
We had a similar experience when any founder starts at day one, it's just you, right? So that's the scariest time. But then as you grow, what we found is that the issue with our AI was more so the data sample that we were looking at. It wasn't necessarily that the AI was making wrong recommendations. So we started out with an AI actually that makes recommendations for pricing, not necessarily customer service or the delivery experience. UPS, FedEx, the post office, the $100,000 shipper could spend less per package than the $10 million shipper. So that's where we started. And what we learned was that our data set wasn't complete. When you're dealing with hundreds of thousands, millions of scenarios, and you only have a data set of 10,000, you're going to miss a lot. And so what the feedback and what I've learned in moving into the post-delivery experience is that you need to constantly test. If you think your data set is large enough, you need to go larger. And then if you think that's large enough, you need to go larger to really dial in that model where you hit the one-off, what you consider a one-off becomes less and less a one-off because now you have more data set. And then I think as you learn and become smarter from getting a better data set and having your AI analyze faster and make better decisions, once you get to that point, that's when you really need to capitalize and make sure that it's dialed in to be completely accurate, because that's, I think, when you're at a point to really sell it, right? There's one thing where we talk about harnessing it and making sure that it's dialed in for safety, but really we need to make sure it's dialed in to do what the AI application actually does so it doesn't go off kilter. And what we found is that our AI model worked for the pricing programs, but what we didn't have dialed in was a large enough data set.
Do you have any thoughts there, Chris?
Uh,
You asked to be put on the hot seat, so throughout this conversation, I'm going to be trying to do my best to do that.
I was thinking actually about areas that are going to be sort of most viable for startups. But going back on that, some of the data that we're starting to see around the things that are sort of most used and have seen the most like pickup are things that are connected to human interactions. I think like character AI right, are some of the most used like generative like AI tools out there. And when you think about building, thinking about what are the things that are going to let people feel like they're engaging with human beings, that they are connected, and as opposed to a lot of the interfaces we have now, for example, are still like almost like you're I want to say coding, talking to a person, if that makes sense, but instead things evolving into a more natural interface type of model. Leaning into those as where you're going to be going as a builder is something that I think is probably the absolute right path to follow.
So when you think about the value creation story of someone building in consumer and Gen AI, what do you think are the key themes that have resonated as you've solved for enterprises, or have you solved for consumer brands, or have you seen different startups, like whether they're pitching it to an investor, whether they're pitching to a potential client? What do you feel are some of the already overutilized key themes there of what Gen AI can actually do? And what are some of the true value that people are finding, right? It feels like everybody has heard about ChatGPT, and kind of like some of the hype is like what I think coming up to the top of the mountain, right? And so how do you keep yourself focused on what the true value is, and maybe what did that journey look like as you were building it for Seek and for Ship?
Yeah, I think that something that we've learned from the sort of applications for consumer focused companies that we work with is just the importance of just joining different data sets together. like we work with marketing companies, or I'm sorry, marketing teams within Fortune 500 companies, and I think one of the biggest challenges that they have, it's not even so much like the AI algorithm itself. It's more the real problem is like, how do I join data together from, say, like our own data plus like these third party consumer transaction data sets that we're purchasing, and then like our spend data on like what we're spending on ads and marketing campaigns and things like that. How do I trace like what people are focusing on in terms of their spend and what we're doing, and also how much it's costing us, and like asking so many questions about just like that sort of holistic view of all of this data together. That's the kind of stuff that I think we're finding can take like months or years to really get to the bottom of those questions. Like the more different data sets are involved, I think the harder and harder the questions are to answer. And we see that with like smaller companies too. Like another example is like the sort of Shopify, Klaviyo, Google Ads, Google Analytics stack. Like a simple question, like how many customers that saw this ad went on to make this purchase and like came back to the website like a month later. Like that in and of itself can just take forever to like code the answer and like the user interfaces across all these different apps. So it's like those are problems that like don't really sound like AI problems, but like from our perspective, like that's the kind of stuff that if we're like, okay, if we can just kind of automate that sort of stuff, like that's the actual value.
I think for us is working with AI is how do we focus on what the customer actually wants. So one of our target markets is anyone selling direct to consumer. So their customers can be a variety range of people that order things to their house. So I'm going to use a use case of a single mom that works from home that orders countless things online. So if I'm a single mom and I know that from my data analytics, because what I'm capturing at checkout, and I know that this single mom likely works. So with the carriers and with my shipping provider, I can actually provide a delivery experience of the time that it's going to get delivered. So do I want that package to show up at 10 a.m. New York City? I live in an apartment building where the mail is just delivered to one central place and people can just pick it up. Versus do I want that mom to have that experience where someone's calling her or she's getting a notification when she's actually home to accept a delivery, so that the brand then doesn't have to deliver or doesn't have to deal with, hey, my package never came. Well, yes, it did. FedEx delivered it. The post office delivered it right to your mailbox. but having that experience where we know by that demographic when the package should be delivered. Is it better to postpone that delivery to a Saturday? Well, what that does for the brand, it not only increases the customer experience, right? That store feeling where I open the box, the carrier gave me the package, but also it helps relieve costs because now the returns are less. The call of where my package is less. And then to be able to use AI to determine that shipper by shipper. And what I mean by that is if I order a package and I call customer service for one brand at 5 p.m. because my package is lost, the next brand can leverage that data to make sure that delivery experience is different or at the recommended time. So then it cut costs, but then also helps increase the delivery efficiency where it is that immaculate delivery that everybody wants from an e-commerce store.
From the sort of investment and differentiating success side of things for startups, one of the biggest challenges that I've seen with a lot of startups in this sort of new Gen AI, epoch, is that people are still having a lot of trouble being able to define like a clear value that they're creating. And what I'm getting back from a lot of VCs, for example, and this is something I've heard pretty consistently over the last 18 months, is I don't know how to like make a meaningful investment decision about whether or not I should invest in this company versus this company, because like they're looking at many of them all as like, oh, you're just a layer, right? You're a layer on top of OpenAI, you're a layer on top of somebody. And that in some ways is their failure, but part of it is also the way that people are thinking about building right now and thinking about communicating that building and not thinking about, well, cool, like what am I actually messaging out to the world that says this is solving a huge problem, and the underlying, like what the technology underneath it, and I know this sometimes offends engineers, is irrelevant, right? What matters is like, what is the experience that I'm getting on the outside where I say, oh, I want to use this over and over and over again forever. And what data set goes into it, that will play into how effective it is and how powerful it is and how accurate it is. But it's less important to the consumer than does this feel like something that is solving this immense problem? And so as you're thinking about building, thinking about positioning and differentiation, being able to have absolute clarity on, well, no, this market that I'm moving into is immense. The number of people that have this problem is immense. And how we're solving it drives, massive retention. Like those are the things that I look at right now when it comes to how I make a decision between like, okay, this company versus this company. The company that's like, yes, I am deeply like focused on my consumer and my technologies, nothing more than a tool to serve them. Like that's the type of company that is exciting to me.
Yeah, rapper. Amazing. All right. So I try to softball as much as possible. Now we're going to open a Q&A for a little bit. You guys have the opportunity to increase the heat and put hot seats here. Please do it. We're going to go to Q&A for a few minutes and then we'll wrap up. Amazing. Yeah. We'll put you in the spot. Okay.
Thank you for the panel. It was really helpful. I just have two questions. One is, me and my co-founder, we are funding a wellness platform called Pause. My first question is like, does that really you have to have AI embedded in your app to get funded? That's my first question. I know it's a hype now. And second question is like, how long do you guys think the AI hype will last? And what will be coming after AI bubble? Or I don't know if you guys agree it's a bubble or not, but yeah, those are my two questions.
I want to jump on the first part of that. I don't think there's like, and don't take this the wrong way.
Yeah.
AI startups are not a thing that you should think about. That's not a framing that anybody should be thinking about right now.
Okay.
You're a wellness startup.
Yeah.
AI is a tool that is an amazingly helpful tool that you use to build your startup, right?
Okay.
In the same way that nobody's an AI startup. No, you're a healthcare startup that focuses on medical imaging and uses computer images to analyze data.
Mm.
those are the types of things that come down to like how you message, right? And being able to say like, oh, I'm an AI startup, you're going to get lost in that shuffle and that differentiation of being like a VC being like, yeah, like you're an AI startup, like I don't really know how to differentiate you from anybody else. So like, oh, we're a wellness startup. We focus on these human beings, these customers, right? And this is sort of how we know we're going to go to market. And this is, the data on that market. And this is how we know we're going to be able to differentiate that market. And AI is merely we used to say like a layer, right? If you think back to, this might date me a little bit, but if you think back to the 2008, 2009, 2010 period, if anybody remembers the term mobile startup, it was the dumbest terminology possible, right? There's no such thing as a mobile startup. You're a startup that solves a problem. Mobile happens to be a distribution method or a platform that you access things through. And AI is no different. It's like an amazing tool that goes into what you already do.
Okay.
You're a wellness startup. Okay.
Thank you for correcting my.
Yeah, I would pile onto that where I think that was what I was trying to get across. You have a platform that solves for wellness. AI is a tool that it helps enhance that. So always consider in your startup, what does AI help my business model solve? Right. And that's what you're trying to get across to investors. I use AI to solve X because I have a business platform software. Then the next question is AI going anywhere? I don't think AI is going anywhere. It's going to be similar to the internet, right? The key winners are the people who get ahead of AI. And how do you implement AI quickly into your startup to solve your use case, right? You have a healthcare app that's going to solve a problem about healthcare. We use AI to make this go faster, and that's why we are better than our competitors.
Well, yeah, I think totally agree. I don't. It's kind of hard to really add on a lot more to what you guys said. But yeah, I guess I would just add like even if like your startup had absolutely nothing to do with AI, like there was no way to really like enhance it with AI. I mean, at the end of the day, like I think you could get so far, maybe raising like a pre-seed round, like with using AI as a tactic to sort of game the hype cycle. But that's just quickly going to fizzle out when you reach more rounds of funding. Like eventually, like I think revenue kind of speaks for itself, and it's kind of hard to beat that. So even if you're not that sexy, like revenue is sexy. Like don't worry about it.
Thank you so much.
Alrighty. Anybody else?
We have lots of great ideas and questions in here.
All right. Yes, that's right. All right, we'll give it 20 seconds more. All right. See, nice. So she asked, Chris, I appreciate it for that. What does it mean to work with 19,000 startups?
So they're referring to, our Inception program has, we actually just crossed 20,000 about a month ago. It's amazing because I think about coming into Inception 3-ish years ago, and we were right around 4,000 companies at the time. And you can sort of imagine in 2 years like what the math is for that. And our team has not grown at that pace. So what it really means is that we have a lot of incredible, amazing, talented founders who want to work with us in one way or another. And our job really is to try to figure out how we create scaled ways to support them. And it's one of the things that I love about NVIDIA's philosophy and was really appealing to me when I first joined the company was that, cool, I don't have to sell anything, right? Our group doesn't sell things because we get to operate really as relationship drivers with startups, right? We get to provide them with an understanding of all the tools that we build that might be valuable. And, I alluded to some of them around computer vision, recommenders, and all that stuff. And being able to know that, okay, we do something that supports all of these companies without asking anything of them. Just knowing that, like, well, we're helping build an ecosystem and we understand our role in that ecosystem is very foundational. And so once startups understand that, it's kind of an amazing feeling because they get this recognition like, oh, I can work with this person very authentically. And I know that they don't have some ulterior motive behind them where, they're going to try and sell me a bunch of stuff. It's like, well, cool, you need to buy stuff. Somebody's going to sell it to you, but like that doesn't have to be our job. Instead, I'm just going to help you figure out like how to build better. So working with 19,000 startups, all of whom, want to be part of the ecosystem overall is wildly humbling.
Amazing. Alrighty, last question. Yeah.
So what are your predictions for AI for the rest of 2024?
I think it's hard to predict because it's such an unknown, where you have changes happening monthly that years in the past would take 10 years. But I do think what's going to happen is it's going to continue to get faster.
Okay.
And I think the winners are going to be the people that understand how to harness AI for their use case. So ours is shipping experience, right? So how do we master that before anybody else? Now, I think in the short term, I think you're going to see leaps and bounds around, especially the advertising side of it, customer service, where it's going to get better much faster than you predict. We actually had a conversation internally about using AI where maybe a year ago it wasn't good enough for us. Maybe 2 months ago it wasn't good enough for us. But this is changing now weekly. Like you can see updates if you just search online of how the updates happen with different startups that are coming out. Startups or big companies that are making improvements. So I think that the change is going to happen so fast that it's going to be unbelievable to everybody in the room.
Yeah, I think one of my predictions is I think that a lot of the innovation, state of the art, like people setting new records on benchmarks. I think what we've seen is that agents, oftentimes these are agents built by startups, not big companies, are setting the records now on benchmarks, not necessarily like huge, language models from big companies. So I think we'll keep seeing that in 2024, that, startups and big companies alike will continue to set the state of the art more with agents that are using LLMs, not necessarily like one major LLM just like crushing all the benchmarks.
Alrighty. All right, we'll
Okay,
pass it.
Thank you.
You got it. We'll pass it back to our MC as we've come to the other side of the mountain. But thank you for bearing with us. So we're excited to still have you hang around for a little bit. I think drinks and food is still out there. So we'll wrap up the night.